Okay, so for today's episode, I'm going to take us all the way back to 1947 and the launch of the modern day engagement ring. I also didn't know that we had criteria, so I've written down Andy's criteria so I can wave it into my example of lasting power, innovation, and market response. But
we didn't have that. Let me just interrupt you. I do that so I can position myself as the winner for this contest.
And I'm going
every
last.
time.
And I'm going last, so I get to use this against you.
No, that's not allowed. You make your own.
Today, marriage and diamond rings are synonymous, right? We would never think of one without the other. But it actually wasn't the case. And not so long ago, it wasn't the case. At the time, diamond rings were very, very rare. The concept of the engagement ring had actually been around since the medieval times, Middle Ages, but they were never widely adopted, okay? So only 10% of the engagement rings that did exist even contained a diamond. They were often a completely other jewel altogether. Also important to know was at the time, a diamond mine called De Beers, which is a jewelry store we know today, controlled the global diamond supply. So it was an entire monopoly. This meant that they had a vested interest in driving demand for engagement rings, but they didn't actually really care where you bought it from. So they didn't know if you bought it from Tiffany's or Cartier or a local shop. They just wanted you to buy a diamond ring. And so I thought they took a really interesting strategy here. They actually engaged an ad agency to help them assess why diamonds weren't selling. So they did some market research, which we know as product marketers, very important part of the job. And essentially, the agency decides after all the research that they're going to pursue a category creation strategy. They're going to create the category of diamond engagement rings. And so they do extensive research around the societal attitudes around diamonds, which I think is really important. And they essentially build a campaign that is going to change how society feels about these diamonds. We know that this is very hard to do. It is kind of like the crux of category creation. They're essentially building demand for something where there's no demand today. And what the research actually showed was that consumers felt that diamonds were reserved for the ultra rich. They were an ultimate luxury. And so women at the time were saying, well, they would rather they spent their money on like a new washing machine rather than a diamond ring. And so the campaign to launch diamond rings had one goal, and that was to make every person who gets married feel like they need a diamond ring. And I think we already know that that was very successful, but I'm going to walk you through the campaign and how they launched the campaign. So, the most impactful part of the campaign that has lasting power, Andy, is the campaign slogan, "A diamond is forever." You might not have even known that that came from De Beers, but it did. It's still in use today, and it actually cemented this core belief around if you want your marriage to last, you need a diamond. You need that level of commitment. They also, with the campaign, wanted the average consumer to see diamonds everywhere. Obviously, this wasn't the case before that. So they hired a publicist as part of the campaign who would write into newspapers and magazines and try to pitch stories about celebrity engagements. And it's not that celebrities weren't being covered before, but like the ring and the engagement part weren't. And so they would write in all the stats about the ring, highlighting it, talking about it like the way that we might see in a celebrity mag today. They also were quite ahead of their time, and they created a bunch of what I'll call inbound marketing material. This was essentially non-branded content, so it didn't have De Beers on it, didn't have Tiffany's on it, and it was just stories about engagements and happy couples. And in every single story, it kind of focused around how loved and happy the woman was because of the diamond that they received. And the women who didn't have diamonds weren't happy or loved. It's kind of sad, I know. And then finally...
That's terrible, just by the way. Just terrible. Oh my God. Sorry, keep going.
This was the 40s. It was a different time.
Different era.
Finally, they heavily promoted the buying criteria that we know today, the 4 C's. So they did this for 2 reasons. The first one was it actually provided like a really tangible guide that would help the men know how to buy a diamond. It felt like super overwhelming before, right? But it was also a sneaky way for them to sell more of their smaller diamonds. So the research study actually found that consumers thought that it wasn't even worth buying a diamond unless it was large. And so the campaign was meant to market other parts of the diamond, so cut, clarity, color, to help minimize the importance of the carat size and increase the importance of the other sizes. So that was the main campaign, but there was a couple interesting fast follows or rolling thunders that came a year or two later. So they actually did some product placement in the 1953 movie Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and they're the ones who are responsible for getting Marilyn Monroe to sing the song Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. And this was a fun fact that I did not know this before I started researching, was that they were the ones who also started dressing movie stars and socialites in diamonds for large events like the Academy Awards and the Kentucky Derby. And obviously this has lasted until today, right? Massive jewelry stores will dress celebrities for these events. So was the campaign successful? I think we've shown it has lasting power. We've shown that it was innovative. But did the market respond? Great question, Andy. The campaign was a success, and the sale of diamonds increased by 55% in less than 2 years. So it was also like an immediate success, which for such a high ticket item, I think is pretty impressive. In 1939, diamond sales were 23 million. And this increased to 2.1 billion by the end of the century. We talk a lot about how positioning and messaging needs to evolve over time, but when you nail it, you nail it. And since 1948, the line, "A diamond is forever," has been in every single De Beers engagement ring ad. And we are talking a 20th century. In 1999, "A diamond is forever" was named as the slogan of the century by Advertising Age. And today, 3/4 of all American brides wear a diamond engagement ring. Talk about shifting societal norms. That's my case.
Wow.
Bravo.
Wow.
Well done.
Great job.
Yeah, that was an excellent frame there of all of those things. It just so well thought through, and I could tell you had been thinking about that for all
be clear
week.
for the listeners. That criteria is not real criteria. So
No.
So everyone should just know that Jason didn't follow that
we didn't
format.
follow the fake
Exactly.
criteria.
The made up. It's just like the points of the show. It's all made up. It's all good.
Score doesn't matter. The one thing that you that also I really like, but I don't know if it's something that De Beers did as part of this. But the whole idea of what was it like setting the price of a diamond, of what you should expect to pay for an engagement ring. Like, was that them too?
It was, but it was not part of this campaign. So I had to keep it short. But basically, several years after this campaign, once they had everyone buying a diamond ring, they're thinking, well, how can I increase average order size? And so they're the ones who came out with the idea of 2 months' salary. And also, I would say that this idea has had lasting power until today. It's pretty common that, if someone goes to buy a diamond ring, they might use this as a benchmark.
Yeah, that's like a cool way to just kind of set a price, like the price of what people should expect to pay for your product. Super interesting. And the 3 C's is really cool too, because thinking of like buyer enablement, like if people feel like they have a better sense of how to evaluate that product just by, in a lot of cases, I'm sure it's kind of made up. And they're just like, but at least it gives me confidence in that I know what I'm doing and feel more comfortable with what I'm buying. It's really smart. Well,
that's exactly it. And they didn't invent the 4 C's, but they saw an opportunity to market it as the criterion. I think it's essentially like buyer enablement for the diamond ring. And I can see how it's like, you just go, you check your little boxes, you know what to expect. And it also gave them another lever to be able to scale prices up and down too, right? Not just based on carat.
I think that is the most important piece. And I can speak to that just from a buyer's perspective, because when I proposed to Sydney, my partner, I was super overwhelmed by the idea of buying a diamond ring, and didn't really all I really knew was carat size as being kind of a way of understanding how valuable a diamond was, but then going and understanding how again, cut, color, clarity, carat, all those things are super important, and understanding really how you can balance each of those to getting a ring that you can feel confident about. I think that's the big piece. Obviously you want to give a great diamond ring to your fiance. It's also about you feeling confident in making that decision. So it's they are considering both the buyer and the end user in that kind of marketing tactic. So I thought it was super smart.